What if the Justinian plague never happened? Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to be looking at Emperor Justinian, who was coming close to reuniting the Roman Empire along with his general Belisarius. However, a huge plague took over and a lot of people died, and this basically stopped the efforts of reuniting the Roman Empire. But in today's video we're going to do a hypothetical history of what if the plague never happened. Now this video is a little bit different to my usual videos, as the script was actually written by a friend of mine. Between 533 AD and 554 AD, the Emperor Justinian and his brilliant general Belisarius had re-established direct control over most of the old empire's core western territories. They were right in many ways to declare Renovatio Imperii Romanorum, all done with limited military resources. The construction of the Hagia Sophia epitomized this newfound confidence and greatness, eclipsing even that of Trajan's domed Pantheon. Not to be surpassed until the construction of St. Peter's Basilica. As the esteemed Edward Gibbon said, both characters were truly the last of the Romans. However, they couldn't defy the hand of history, and towards the end of Justinian's reign, the rejuvenated empire was decimated by one of the worst plagues in human history. It has been theorized that this terrible disease originated on the borders of Western China or in the Caucasus. So in today's episode we are going to gauge how the empire would have fared, or even how European history might have progressed if the disease had not have taken place. If the Roman Empire had retained a strong population, then its tax base and military would have remained robust. The reintroduction of core Western territories would have added to the economy, especially the age-old breadbasket of Carthage. Even a reduced Rome was still one of the largest cities in the Mediterranean, and had been particularly restored by the previous Visigothic regime. In our timeline, the real timeline, a century later, the Rashidun Caliphate was allowed to sweep through the Eastern Mediterranean due to the exhausted stalemate between the Eastern Roman Empire and the Persian Sassanid Empire. In this hypothetical timeline, Rome's eastern frontier would have been well manned and fortified, and may have even expanded at Persia's expense. Eastern Rome would have had the strength to resist the heat of the jihad, and just as it had done countless barbarians during the Great Migration period. No establishment of later caliphates means political and religion would be very different in southern Europe. The church would have still been led by 6 patriarchs. No dissolution of the Jerusalem, Antioch, Alexandria would mean that Roman Constantinople wouldn't gain in stature. Therefore, no later distinctive Catholic and Orthodox traditions would develop. On Christmas Day, 800 AD, Charlemagne was elevated by the Bishop of Rome to become an alternate emperor. This was done effectively to ensure that this figure would have a moldable protector. Throw off the shackles of imperial authority in Constantinople, therefore effectively finishing the road in becoming properly Pontifex Maximus, or Pope. Being a first amongst equals wasn't enough. The Bishop of Rome had a free hand to do this, as Constantinople was wrecked by civil and external strife. The Empress Irene was particularly the de facto ruler. A woman solidifying her position on the imperial throne was unacceptable. It was even suggested that Charlemagne would marry her, but this never came to fruition. There was no last attempt at merging of East and West, a last gasp of restoration. In our hypothetical timeline, this would have never happened. Justinian's foundation may have been built upon further. The Franks in Old Gaul may have been brought to heel, no Charlemagne would mean no Holy Roman Empire in the Middle Ages. A strong central imperial authority would mean no rise of a Germanic imperial alternate in the West. No model for medieval kingship, and feudalism for centuries to come. Belisarius was offered the imperial throne in the West by the Roman Senate on the completion of the Gothic Wars. He refused. His reasons we don't fully know. A shortage of resources due to the plague must have crossed his mind. The wars had been heavily attritional, and so he was not in a position to press his elevation to Justinian. However, Belisarius may have truly not desired the Western throne, and he didn't want to trigger a civil war, the current bane of the old empire. Yet in our plague-free timeline, Belisarius may have felt confident to accept the Western title, and as Western Empire he would have two options. First, use his seasoned army to challenge Justinian for control over the overall empire. Justinian also wasn't very popular in all circles. There were the Nikita riots early in his reign, and Procopius' secret history shows hostility among Constantinople's senatorial elite towards him. Belisarius had a mixed relationship with Justinian. In our timeline, he was constantly dismissed and returned to military commissions. Even in 562 AD, he was temporarily imprisoned for a trumped-up charge of corruption. In Belisarius' mind, he may have resented this armchair emperor taking all the credit for the empire's restoration, which was Belisarius' work. Justinian actually was the last Roman emperor to celebrate a triumph, which again was for Belisarius' work. Belisarius' second choice would be to form an accommodation with Justinian, i.e. force the emperor in Constantinople to formally accept him and acknowledge him as a Western counterpart. We can only speculate on the dynamic of this arrangement. Would Belisarius be treated as an equal co-emperor, or would Justinian emphasize Belisarius as a subordinate lesser emperor known as a Caesar, Justinian being the senior Augustus? So the movie Gladiator has messed up a lot of people and how they think that the Roman emperor was called. The Roman emperor was called an Augustus. The Caesar was kind of the person who would take over upon the death of the emperor, or a second emperor. So Augustus was the title of the emperor, Caesar was a second emperor. At the end of the 3rd century AD, there had been a formalized college of 4 emperors called the Tetrarchy, 2 Augusti and 2 heir apparents or Caesars, all bound by marriage alliances. Multiple emperors running, and in the theory, indivisible empire wasn't an alien concept to the Romans since as far back as the days of Marcus Aurelius. This was helped by the fact that the Roman state always had 2 consuls appointed every year. Yes, even at this time there were still consuls operating, one resident in Rome and the other in Constantinople. In our plague-free timeline, many Roman institutional staples would have remained intact, such as the consulship. Western territories, more secure, would have justified the continuance of a counterpart in Rome proper. In reality, the Western consul drifted out of existence just like the original Senate. The last one was appointed during the mid-7th century reign of Phocas, that's PH. Without the later persistent threat of Islam, legionary units would have survived too. The 5th Legion in Macedonia was present during the real conquest of Egypt in 646 AD. It had been formed all the way back in 43 BC. It's worth noting that these Justinian age legions were reduced to 1,000 men for their aim for greater mobility. Sadly, in reality, the millennia-old legions were eventually replaced by the Greek name thematic system, which was feudalistic in character. Now, at the end of the episode, With no Justinian plague and further territorial reductions, more Latin culture would have been retained. Justinian himself is reputed to be the last Latin-speaking emperor, so therefore the last real Roman emperor. It was spoken in his court, the Constantinople Senate, and was a prerequisite in the army. With the West reintegrated, there would have been no officiating of the Greek by the Emperor Heraclius in 620. From that moment, Rome became Byzantium from our modern perspective. So there you have it, guys. Without the Justinian plague, things could have been very different. Thank you to my friend for writing this script. I hope I didn't butcher any of those names. What do you guys think? Please leave a comment. Please leave any questions. I will answer any question that is in the comment section. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. This video is for educational purposes only.